Hey, hey, here we go. All right. So I want to make sure I've got the right screen shared for you. And I do want to give you a sneak peek as we get started to our new community that we have. So some of you all might already be here, and that's why that you're here. But we have a free community that is hosted over on Go High Level, which I am an agency owner of. So just shameless side plug if you would like to get a $97 membership for $45 a month instead. I can provide that for you. But over here in this, now granted, I've got admin access, so you might see something a little different. But if you go over to events, you will see like all of our upcoming free opportunities for people to attend. For example, we've got our training happening. And on the first Wednesday of each month, we do have a networking. So that will be getting posted in here soon too. And then your learnings at special rates. So I normally charge way more for this training. But because we have it in here, and if you're a member, you'll get it for the $27. And you would just, there'll be a purchase button and you would purchase that. We do plan on having more things coming in here, and I'm really excited. So we've got a leaderboard where I can add rewards. So that might be like earning a free course or earning something, maybe get a t-shirt or something like that. So we're going to start playing in this group more. That being said, use this a little bit different than a Facebook community. So it's not for promoting, but it is really for like asking questions similar to what you would do in a paid group. So, a lot of benefits going on here. Now, we do have our Business Growth Lab paid membership. And for our paid members, you might be like, oh my gosh, it looks so similar. And it does look similar. We do have these isolated chats over here on the side, and it'll tag and things. So when we're in the 5 days to more clients, like we can have more detailed conversations. And if you become a member, you're learning, which we're adding more into it as we're converting over. These learnings are just available and you will get to just open them up. And as you're a paid monthly member, they will be available and we'll continue to add more and more in here as well. And same thing applies. You'll see our upcoming events, and there are regular recurring events. And you can also see, like, as the holidays are coming up, so I'm going to be taking this one off because we're not going to be here on Christmas Day. And we won't be having sessions on Christmas Eve either. So you'll be able to see those being removed and see the ones that are there. And what's really cool is you can click on it and you can add it directly to your calendar, which is great, especially if you're a super busy individual. That's available. So it's like, I'm planning out my week and I know that I can attend these, so I'm going to add them to my calendar. So just wanted to give you this cool little sneak peek at what we've got going on. And now we'll get back to our regularly scheduled show. Hi, I'm Izzy Nally. I am a business strategist. I specifically work with sales and marketing funnels, those combined sales and marketing funnels, and teaching people sales, not just the strategies, but also the skills and the mindset, because there is such a mindset shift when you approach sales and being able to digest it and being able to sell your services. And one thing that we speak a lot about in the Business Growth Lab membership is this ability to separate yourself from your business, your product, your service, that you are the business owner and you are not the business itself. You and it are different, and that we're not the person that wears all the hats. We put one hat on, we do that thing, we take that hat off, and then we put the other hat on. And that mindset shift does take a little bit. And in order to integrate it, you will need to continue to have the conversations about it. We do office hours where you can come in and just ask a question or talk about something you're struggling with. That it is a judgment zone because even the most successful people have struggles, have mindset blocks and they typically don't talk about it. They typically are just putting on the mask to continue to be the professional. And that in this group, we're all professionals, we're all experts at what we do. If someone else was tuning in, they might be like, that's not a business owner. They'd be like, man, they're a hot mess. But the truth is like we are behind the scenes trying to figure out a lot of things and we're winging it and we make it look good. So I say that lovingly to know that you get to show up as you are. There is a no judgment. We all have those things that we're avoiding doing, that there's a mindset block around, and we're just going to walk through it and talk through it. Now, in the High Paid Woman, and we get into the Rich Goddess Energy program, which is part of High Paid Woman, we do a lot more of the hypnotherapy, the energy work, the mindset work, the meditations, and things like that. And I will have a few basic ones available in Business Growth Lab coming up. But yeah, I just want to give you a little update, like what to expect, like what's this about, as you hear me talking about some of these things. So we are in the 5 days to more clients, and I call it a challenge because you can do this and really commit and allow yourself to make it a push, make it a push past what your normal is. So today we're on day 3 about how we're going to showcase value. Tomorrow we'll dive into our 4-part pitch. Just a reminder to utilize this time as uninterrupted time so that you really truly can get the most out of this. As I just mentioned, if some of this is new or some of this is a different way of thinking, that you do need to allow yourself to focus, write this down, work through it. And today, especially as we work on designing that call, that value-based call, you will want to start brainstorming. Now, what I would recommend doing is, yes, ChatGPT is a very useful tool as we dive into this. But I need you to brainstorm a lot of this out before you start going over to ChatGPT because we don't want to become so reliant on it that we don't know our business and that the chat is sitting there creating all of our business ideas for us. Most of you all are business owners because you are beautiful creatives and you have so much wisdom. And unless you have dumped all of your wisdom into the AI features, most likely it's not going to have all of your wisdom. Now, it can help you in tweaking and organizing and rewording and fluffing some of the things that you already know. But I just want to give that caution as we dive in today in designing our call. All right, here we go. So, day 1, quick review. We talked about making sure that we've got the person at the right stage. We're striving for 3 or 4. Day 2, we talked about sparking those conversations, getting in the DMs. And now for day 3, we are talking about continuing to build trust and add value. So, what we are doing today is we are implementing not just building trust, but the law of reciprocity. There we go. Reciprocity. It's a mouthful of a one. Um, oh, what does that mean? Well, when we look at buyer psychology, this is definitely something that is implemented a lot. And there was a famous yogi, I can
Follow
see
the board
his face,
to
but I
him,
can't
and
think
may
of
be
it.
monitored for quality assurance and training.
So he actually would go to airports and he would hand out flowers and, kind of provide a little bit of a blessing. And people were so like humbled and amazed by it, and that he was not expecting anything. And that's part of this. He was not expecting anything in return, but for many of the people would say, "Oh my gosh, that's so nice." They felt the need to repay him for that generosity, reciprocity. Okay. And they would say, "Oh, what can I do for you?" And he'd say, "Well, we are doing a fundraiser for our mission." I forget the exact wording, but for our mission, anything you could give would help. And often people would give far more than $5. They would give a 20, they would give more. And I remember learning about this later because this actually happened to me. I was in California and I was walking around this like beautiful area where it was in San Diego near the San Diego Zoo, absolutely gorgeous area. And there was a yogi, a more very traditional yogi that was like monk style. And he had on his, monk garb and he had on a table and he gave me a flower and I was like, oh wow. And it stopped me and I started having a conversation with him. And of course, if you all know me, I love yoga and Vedic philosophy and all things ancient wisdom. And he was talking and he started like giving me books and putting them in my hands. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what am I getting myself into? And he was like, anything that you can pay towards those when I was getting ready to leave, he was like, anything you can pay towards those is great. And of course, I had this stack full of books in my hands, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And before I know it, I'm handing him like $40. Um, so this works, but it doesn't just work for fundraising and these bigger missions. It really does work even in business. That when someone goes out of our way, like we feel the need to pay them back in some way. We'll see this with companies like Mary Kay does this a lot, where it's like, I'm going to give you a free pamper session. And in return, at the end of that, you're like feeling so great that you're like, I feel like I need to do something for them. Yes, I'm going to try. I'm going to buy a product, even if I don't really want it. I'm going to buy it because I want to pay them back for this opportunity or for this gift. So it works and businesses implement it in different ways. When we get into this consultative solution selling, this also positions us so that we have more information to do that type of selling. All right. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more. We want to position and deliver a results-based call. Okay, that's important. Results-based. It's not just a value-based call, it's a results-based call. And we're going to deliver it in 15 to 30 minutes. As I mentioned, I believe I mentioned yesterday, like the goal is 15 minutes. However, as you perfect it, or you will typically use 30 minutes and then you'll perfect it down to 15, just to be realistic in my experience. That gives prospects a taste of what you can provide. And it's not just what you can provide. There's many different aspects that's going into that. It's how you talk, the pace in which you explain things, how patient you are, how you receive, how you all are able to communicate back and forth with each other. Is it something that they can actually implement? And a lot of times we're even sensing, like, are they intuitively sensing me? And can we be in a container together? Are they going to actually be able to help me get results in a way that allows me to show up in the best capacity to get those results too, which we're going to dive into that to getting to yes, because a lot of times people are actually judging based on do they think they can do it and they can show up. A lot of times if you've displayed all the things, it needs to be easy for them too. But we'll dive into that later. So we're going to look at the structure of a results-based call and how to provide actionable takeaways to your prospects. How to schedule the next step is a 24 to 48 hour continue the conversation and guide them to becoming a client, right? And sometimes it might be directing them to the next thing because maybe they're not fully ready, which we'll dive into that too. Buyer behavior has changed a little bit in the past 2 years, unfortunately, but like we know why, right? When COVID happened, everybody's business went online. Everybody saw the benefits of marketing. Everyone saw that there were people for grabs. And now people are just inundated. And the beauty of that is most of them are doing ads and things that are just in their scroll. But you can get in the DMs and start building the relationships because that part's a little bit more of a struggle, right? Like not everybody's doing that and not everyone's doing it in a great way. Like I get these spammy messages and it's like, we're having this call this next day and like we really want you there and are you going to be there? And like it turns into a harassment and not a like, hey, I see you. Hey, I know that I can help you. Hey, I see you are a human and not just a buyer. And we do want to make sure that we have that energy regardless of how we approach it. All right. So, reviewing how we're getting to the call before we dive into that real quick. So again, sent them a message. We acknowledged their problem if they had a vulnerability post. We're going to provide value. It might be a quick tip. It might be a free resource. And in that, we're also going to ask some open-ended questions. And again, we can guide them to the resource and then follow up with offering the call. We could offer them a resource if we're like, they're just not ready for me yet. They're not ready for a call. Let me get them to implement this resource because that'll be a better use of my time. So that could be a possibility. But I will tell you, all of this moves a whole lot faster if you just get them on the call. Again, resource can be great if they just can't get on a call anytime soon. So we're gonna work on getting them on a call. This is part of making sure that we have multiple touch points. So I just want to reiterate this again. The average consumer requires 8 to 12 touch points. And I want to keep saying that so that you remember this because it's just like when I have personal training clients and I have to keep reminding them it takes 8 weeks to see results. Week 3, you're like waiting for results and you still got to wait till week 8. So here, 8 to 12 touch points is what you're looking for. So if you're like, man, I've followed up with them like 4 or 5 times, 8 to 12 is really what we're looking at. So we're setting the stage during this results-based call. And I think I already mentioned it. We're creating a reason to also follow up with them. Okay. So we're not trying to give them all the goods, and I am very guilty of doing this in the past. I would get on a call and I would tell them everything they needed to do, and they would value it. And they were like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. But they had no reason to really follow up than to like implement this gigantic plan, which was going to take them months and months. Now, if I was smarter back in the day, granted, I did this a little bit, so I won't completely discredit myself, but I should have followed up and said, like, how are you implementing these things? Like, we could do this faster if we did it together. But a lot of times I had a lot of fear of being pushy. And what happened for me is I had to transform again my mindset into I'm not being pushy. I am working on getting them the results they want as fast as possible and letting them sit there and suffer and continue to beat themselves up because they're not doing the things that they need to do is not helping them. So I was avoiding my success and their success at the same time. And I had to have that realization. So our goal is not to give them everything. And that's exactly why we want to design this call so that it is super, super specific. Now, I love utilizing the example of Heather. She's a health coach. We designed her call, and it was like the 3 things you need to do to get more energy. Something super simple, right? And people are like, "Oh, I'm intrigued. Like 3 things I need to do to get more energy." And so we tested that out and we did a little role play and I was like, "Okay, get on the call and help me navigate." And excuse me. She went into coaching mode. And I said, "No, this is not about providing coaching. This call is about asking questions and letting them do most of the talking. And then you're going to fill in what those 3 things are. And you're just going to repeat back essentially what they said." So she was like, what are some things that you feel like you need to be doing And what are some of the good habits you have, and what are some of the bad habits you have? And often people will just start talking, and they're like, "Well, I know I need to drink more water, but I just can't seem to do that." And I was like, "Okay, so we're gonna list down drink more water. We're gonna come back to that. What's another thing that you think?" And if they didn't tell her, we had prepared the questions. What's your diet like? Like, right? What's your water consumption? What's your diet like? What's your sleep like? Three basic things. Those are the questions she's going to ask. The problem is that this seems so simple for most of us as business owners that we're like, surely no one needs me to get on the phone and tell them that they need to drink more water, that they need to eat better, and that they need more sleep, and that they're going to get more energy. Like, surely I don't have to get on a call to do that. But we're downplaying it in our mind. So, for example, on my offer audit, I have a little questionnaire that you fill out before you get on. And I am going to ask you, like, who's your core audience? What is your offer? And you know what it really pinpoints out? That majority of the people, one, they're either not marketing their offer, they're not, and I say marketing, meaning they're not even sharing about it at all. Two, they're not asking for the sale. And so there's kind of three categories that they can kind of fit in. It's like there's either a sales component, a marketing component, or they don't have an offer positioned at all. It's like 3 sessions with me. And so I can then pinpoint out very clearly 5 key things that they need to do. Now, I could easily shift that and say, like, what's the next thing? Because they might get overwhelmed with five things. But that's also how I continue to refine these calls as well. So, for example, for Heather, if she found that wasn't working out and she was giving them too much information, like she could give them one homework assignment to think about. She could tell them the 3 things and say, like, what's the one thing you would like to focus on this week? Or within the next 24 hours, what's one thing that you would like to focus on? Because we do want to set ourselves up for the next call, the next follow-up. Things that we do also want to ask during this call is like, how important is the solution, right? Like having more energy. How important is having more energy for you? Is we can push on their pain points. We're not I don't like the term pushing on their pain points, but discover their pain points that we can then utilize that in our marketing, but we can also use that in our sales call in the future. Um, but it's quite beautiful when you give someone value and then you get off the phone. Now, we're going to schedule their next session before you get off the phone, but to get off the phone and you're not leaving them feeling like I just got sold. You're leaving them in a high state. You're leaving them going like, "Oh, wow, like someone really just got on a call with me and didn't sell me." How beautiful is a feeling like that? So that's what we're really wanting to leave them with. Now, as we are designing and defining your call, I like to work backwards, but I'm going to list these out real quick. So we want to give it a title. Now, when we give it a title, it doesn't need to be super frou-frou like the oh gosh, I can't even think of the frou-frou ones that people would think of. It's like the Zaxby method structure. And people are like, I don't know what in the world that is. It needs to be something that says like the get more energy in 2 days call. It could be the define your headline of your website call. Something super minute. Okay. What you will deliver in this call, right? So maybe I'm going to give you 3 options for what the headline on your website should say, or what the first box on your website should include. And you're going to define what the photo or graphic should be, what of their color scheme it should be, and what are the top words that need to be included. So you're not giving them the whole thing. You're not telling them your homepage. You're not doing those things. Like one specific thing. Now, ask yourself, could I do that in 15 minutes with them doing a lot of the talking? And maybe not. Maybe it's a website evaluation call and they're going to give you all the information. You're going to spend 10 minutes going and looking at it. You're going to write it up, and then on that call, you're going to present it to them. And they don't get it unless you get on a call and you present it to them. You could do that too, but keeping in mind how much is it going to take you because you don't want to spend 30 minutes before and 30 minutes on the call unless they're maybe paying a small fee for that. And then what's the call's value? This should, when they see it, and this is the way I want you to think about this, is this is something you could charge for. You really could charge for because it's going to have a lot of value. So, like the offer audit call, I could easily charge $297 for because I am looking over it. I am giving this recommendation based on my expert advice. And they're going to walk away with quite a bit of information, but a lot of times what it does is it leaves them going like, "Oh my gosh, I still have a lot of work to do." And I don't intentionally want them to feel that feeling. However, I do want them to be aware of their problem and the current state of their problem so that I'm also not being unrealistic. Okay. So, call title. 3 points is generally what I go for on what's the deliverables that they're going to walk away with and what's the call's value. So take a screenshot of this or write that down because we're going to work through this. Oh, same presentation slide. All right, so I wanted to give you a quick little timeline, and if you've attended this before, this is something new that I've added to just give you this visual of like what's really taking place. So you're choosing someone who's in stage 3 or 4. You're prospecting and engaging. You're providing a resource and or inviting them to a call. Then you're going to deliver the value-based call and you're going to schedule their follow-up during that call. You're going to have the follow-up call in which you can present the sale. This would be where you present. Now, on 6, you might be continuing to follow up, but what we will teach in day 5 of this week is that we really don't want to be stuck with a maybe. We want to be with a yes, a no, a not right now. That's okay. But we don't want to get stuck in this wish-washy where you're not really sure, they're not really sure, they're sitting in guilt. You're trying to figure out how to follow up with them. We don't want that. We want a clear, and I typically will state it like, I'm looking for a yes or a no, not a maybe, because I don't want to harass you. And if you tell me maybe, I'm going to harass you, unless you want me to harass you. Like, so I might say it a little more playful. Um, and then if they're a no, I can ask why. But if they're a maybe, it's a little harder to ask for why. So we're going to dive into that. But I want you to see what this structure looks like because it is so important for you to have a sales strategy. And essentially, I'm giving you my sales strategy this week. So I want you to really start to see like, does this work for you? And guess what? It will work for you, but maybe feeling wise, you're like, I want to add something or I want to try something else. I will tell you this structure works just for just about everyone, or any business, should I say. But if you find that you want to shift something, I would love for you to either have a graphic or something for yourself, to have it plastered or a document like where you can easily access it on a regular basis so that you can iron out your sales funnel, your sales process. Now, do I have other sales funnels? Of course, but this is my sales funnel. So I might add little things into this. Like you're like, well, Izzy, you're doing a training for free right now. Like when do I offer a training for free and how does that implement into here? So there is the funnel, I'm sure that we've all seen where it's like we're filtering lots of people through and then they come down. And I also utilize what I call the get visible method as well. So as I'm collecting these stage 3 and stage 4 people, this is a longer term strategy, but it also allows me to now send people a message, prospect and engage, and it just throws them right back into this sales funnel. Okay. So giving you all my secret sauce, the way you know. So let's dive into this. So, title, what they get, how long your call is going to be, how are you going to deliver your call, the value of it, and how are they going to book it? These are the real core things that I see people get hung up on, or I get lots of questions about after I've already told them the other stuff. So, I wanted to list these out just that slightly different way. So, if you want, you can put it into the chat or into the comments. Even if you're watching the replay, there should be comments available. We also, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have our communities where you can put those in. Even in the Facebook community, you could do a poll of which one sounds more enticing, especially if you're a paid BGL member. You can post in the group, post a poll and like do a survey to say like which one's more enticing. Like, would you pay for one of these calls? And again, you'll need to assess the value. The value, when we position value, and I talk a lot more in High Paid Woman about this, the value isn't what you would charge, although it could be. If if I know, hey, okay, if they took this information and they implemented it, how much value would that be? It could also be approached in that way. And that's the way the majority of business owners that do value-based positioning will put it. For example, if I was to teach this training at a corporate facility and I was to work with them, I would easily charge anywhere from 5 to 20,000 just for this week's worth of training. Now, if I was to put this in a DIY course platform and I was to sell it, I might sell it for 297, but that's not the value. So just throwing that out there real quick. How to book or schedule a call. You could easily do this in the chat. You can, so in this initial one, we're already in the DMs with them or we're on email. Calendly has a free option that you could do booking with. You could literally just give them 3 times that work well for you within the near future and let them choose one, get their email, book it in your Google Calendar, and then schedule them or like add them onto the invite. You can give them a phone call. If it's under 30 minutes, you can utilize the free Zoom option. Google phone calls can go up to an hour. Or you could just literally call them. And I've had several people do this with me, is they just call me on Facebook Messenger with the phone call feature. So those are extremely possible, but I would like for you to decide that because you're reducing and eliminating barriers that could get in the way of you doing this. Uh, I would say go ahead and plan for 30 minutes. When you give them the description, you can say it's from 15 to 20 minutes. Block a little extra time just in case. It's also buffer time. So if you get back-to-back people scheduled, it's also just easier to select the 30 minutes on the calendar. So make sure that you communicate that to them in that description. Okay. So your homework is to do this. Now, what I highly recommend is for our Business Growth Lab members to use office hours to get this done. Like submit it to me or present it in office hours and let's review it. I most likely will have some minor tweaks Just because as the creator versus the receiver, we are going to see and view things slightly differently. And you'll have blind spots as the business owner. You will. I have blind spots around my business too. I am really, really great at helping other people with their businesses. And then I have blind spots around mine. So I have a coach too. And I get feedback from my other business professionals to help me to identify those blind spots. And then I make the decisions. Now, I will caution you, like, I can make suggestions and you can choose to implement them or not implement them, or to take pieces of it and implement it. That's always an option because your business has to feel good for you in order for you to do the things. But I also wouldn't get so stuck on only the way it feels because sometimes those are blocks that are or that are creating feelings that are preventing and blocking us too. So, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. All right. What we're doing next. So, tomorrow we're talking about structuring our follow-up call from the solution-based call. So, I would recommend get this call design done. Start pitching it. And you might pitch it to some people you're more comfortable with. Like maybe you have a friend and you're like, hey, I just created this new value-based, results-based call. I was wondering if I could test it out on you. It's here's the title and information. Like practice on a couple people and get their feedback if you need that. Or if you're like me, I just dive in and I'm like, we'll figure it out. So give yourself the space to see what you need. I'm going to open it up to Q&A. If anybody has any questions, feel free. You can either type them in the chat, you can unmute. Um, if you're watching the replay, again, within our community, pull that back up onto the screen. There is a discussion, and we have specifically the 5 days more clients chat. So it'll select down here at the bottom, and you can just type question. Like that's all good. You don't have to make it super complicated. And you're like, I'm stuck on what to do my call on. And feel free to submit that. Now, I would recommend to give me a little more information because a lot of us have multiple different businesses. So like what are you working on selling them? Like what's the sales goal? Because I'm going to work backwards from that. All right, so that is there as your additional resource. For those who are in the free community, that tab is also there that I'm working with you all just for this week. So if your question's there next week, I might see it, I might not. Now for our paid members, I'm always checking on you all. So feel free to throw those out. Just a reminder. So if you're like, okay, Izzy, you told me about the Business Growth Lab. How much is it? It is $49 a month. And I will say that uh, I am in communities that are very similar. I probably provide more and I pay way, 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 way more than $49 a month. Every single one has told me that's a ridiculous amount, that I should only give you all 1 to 2 meetings per month for $49, which maybe is true, but this is what feels good for me. So I provide it for you all. So make sure that you utilize it, make sure that you are taking advantage of it. But really, truly, if you only really paid attention to 1 or 2 things each month, you are still getting enormous value. So just putting that out there as well. All right. Our offerings, Business Growth Lab, as I just reiterated, we've got High Paid Woman, which will be starting in the new year. And then we've got our Wealth and Wellness retreats as well. All right. If there's no questions, I will see you tomorrow for day 4. We're talking about the 4-part pitch and how we follow up from this call and lead it into the sail where it doesn't feel sleazy or slimy. It feels good. It feels natural. It feels like it's in flow. All right. See you later.